remember back in the day when you would listen to a band and you knew the name of every single member of the band?
Yep.
That monoculture has gone away.
Welcome everybody to a brand new episode of We Were Loud Once. We are sitting here with a good friend of ours and podcast connoisseur over at another local podcast not too far away from us here, but he's been doing it for a long time. He's got this awesome show, if you haven't ever checked it out, Caught on the Mic. But yeah, we're sitting here with our buddy Mike Clark.
What's
How you
up,
doing?
guys?
How's it
Not
going?
much, man. It's good to see you again, brother. It's been a little bit.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah,
Thanks
yep.
so much.
No, our pleasure.
Totally.
Yeah. I don't think I actually sent it to you, but I was like, I promise I wasn't stalking you, but we were together in the same building for the season's beatings a couple weeks ago. And I saw you down at the commentator's desk and I was like, I'm going to send a picture and like text it over to him. But I don't think I actually sent it over to you, but I was going to be like, hey, I'm stalking you, weirdo.
You know what's funny? The Minner brothers do that to me every time.
Do they? That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Like Brady Minner, Derek's younger brother, like all three of them fight.
Yeah.
But Brady Minner, I'll be sitting in the commentary booth and he's one of the first people I always look out for whenever I go to these events to call the fights. And my phone will go off and like clockwork at some random place in the crowd. He's got me. And it's always in the worst moment. I always
That's right.
look my fattest or most unflattering. I'm like, dude, really? And so the other night, whenever we were at season's beatings, I caught him.
Nice.
So it was like the shoe's on the other foot now, brother.
That's so funny. That's hilarious. Yeah. I think that's why I didn't text you, because I don't think it was a very flattering picture.
It wasn't. I think you posted it on a comment on Facebook, and it wasn't. It wasn't. It's so funny because I run through these seasonal cycles where I'm a gym guy. So, there's bulking season, there's trimming season, and I'm definitely in bulking season.
You're in
right
bulking.
now.
That's right. Well, you have to be now. It's like the holidays, dude. You gotta eat all the food. So
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
funny. But that was actually, speaking of fights or whatever that night, that was a series of great fights that night. Like, we are very lucky to have Dynasty Combat Sports in our area, because we are blessed. We got good local fighters here.
Yeah, it's awesome. Like, when I started my pod 5 years ago, I kind of looked at two different piles of people I had connections to. One was musicians, and then the other pile was people in the MMA community.
Yeah.
So I've tried to balance between both. But I've worked with Elevation Fight Team out of Colorado.
Yep.
So a lot of big names with them, and I've had a lot of well-known UFC fighters on the show, but I always wanted to kind of get involved on the local level. And so I've had a few Dynasty fighters on my show, and then about a year ago, Henry, the fight booker from Dynasty, reached out to me and he was like, hey, would you ever consider doing the pay-per-view commentary? And that's kind of how I landed in that. And I gotta say, I think I've landed at the best time possible, because it definitely, every event feels like a massive inflection point where it's growing and growing and growing and growing and becoming bigger. And there's something about Midwest MMA that hasn't really quite peaked yet. And it's an exciting place to be in right now.
I agree. Yeah. I will say, the first season beatings I went to, I think it was actually the first one. I think it was 10 years ago, I think, about.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a cool story. I won't dive too far into it, but the company that I used to work for, they were one of the engineers who helped design the Pinnacle Bank Arena. So they have a suite that's just lifetime suite in there. And so they have a deal with their suite tickets that, anytime there's an event and stuff, to go like swoon, some customer or something like that, they'll be like, hey, let's go ahead and take so-and-so up to the suite and they can watch Taylor Swift with their family or something like that, and whatever. But so they have just season tickets for everything that's happening there all year long. And so every time there's an MMA event, they just know they would never use it, because only thugs and monsters or something like that, or in the MMA evidently. And so then like the chick who was in charge of it, she was like, yeah, we have these extra tickets. Do you want them? I'm like, yes. And so we just gotta like have this like hands-on. There's like a butler in there and stuff. I mean, there's not a butler, but there's like a dude in there who's like serving you and stuff and bringing you whatever you want and
Yeah.
everything. You get this VIP parking from the back and everything. And it was just like, oh my gosh, is this what Trump lives like? Like, it's like I could deal with this. But no, that was awesome. But but back to my point though was, I mean, it was a pretty decent turnout, that year.
Yeah.
And there was good fights, but you could kind of tell they were like figuring it out. Like there was kind of a space in between each of the fights, and it kind of lagged on a little bit, and it was a little rough around the edges, but it's still entertaining. But man, you go now and it is just a well-oiled machine, and it's just like, I mean, it seems like the mecca card of the year. You have all these big names fighting against each other. Every single fight is entertaining. I mean, it's just, oh, it was so much fun. It was just a
Oh,
good event.
that warms my heart to hear you say that. And you got to think about where the dynasty has grown over the course of the last 10 years. Like, what names have walked through the cage at
Right.
Dynasty? You have Anthony Smith,
Yeah.
Drew Dober,
Yeah.
Grant Dawson, who we were
Yeah.
talking about, but I
Exactly.
couldn't come
I
up
was
with
gonna
his
say,
name.
yep, yep, yep.
Grant Dawson's done that. Derek Minner,
Yeah, Derek Manor, yeah.
Houston Alexander.
Alexander, yep.
And even since I've been doing the fight commentary, the random people that have popped up at the commentary table with me. I've had
Yeah.
Jamal Hill sit with me.
Yeah.
I've had Houston has sat with me. And then exactly a year ago, actually, we're doing New Year's knockouts on January 31st. But last year's New Year's knockouts, I had Bud sitting with me at the
Yeah,
table
that's
for a
cool.
little while. And
Yeah.
it's like, man, these are like pinch me moments that I gotta say it, yeah, shameless plug, but this is a result of Caught on the Mic and me like pushing myself into that narrative and then getting this fortunate opportunity to be a part of Midwest MMA at its best.
Yeah. Well, you deserve it, man. I mean, you do a
Thanks.
really, really good job. I have watched a few of the pay-per-views and you do an excellent job. I think it's cool to note though that you are a fan, and I think that makes a huge difference. Even with UFC, if you're watching UFC or whoever else, you can tell when a guy is just a guy on there commentating and he like kind of knows a little bit of the lingo. But compared to a fan where they're like, "Oh my gosh, he's going for omoplata. He's, da 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 da." I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's a way different scenario listening to the commentation and stuff, and that's what you bring, and I think you do a fantastic job at it, and you deserve it. Like I said, you started off with Caught on the Mic, and look at things going up for you, so that's really cool. You're
Thank
like
you.
our own little local Joe Rogan, It's awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, I gotta give credit where credit's due. My co-host Caleb Betzold, the way that we run commentary, and this has been we've had a lot of positive feedback since we've been the team the last year, is he's the brains and I'm the brawn. So he
Yeah.
talks a lot of the technicality,
Sure.
where I talk a lot of more about the psychology. And
Yes.
my big thing, and as cheesy as this is going to sound, with both the podcast and my commentary, is I want to break the stigma of MMA. Like that has been something that I
Yeah.
think has been the most challenging thing. Yes, it used to be human cockfighting 20
Yeah.
years ago, but now it is a legitimized sport that has sanctions, that has people that have been training their whole life. It
Yep.
has rules, there are boundaries, and these guardrails have made the sport even better. And if I can do my part to kind of break that stereotype and help push it through on a regional level to where people are a little bit more accepting of the sport, I'm all in on it.
Agreed. That's awesome, man. Yeah, because I mean, you nailed it. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, yeah, way back in the day, I remember the first time I watched a UFC fight was in 1993,
Yeah.
and it was on a VHS tape, and I was like almost sick to my stomach. I'm like, we're actually watching this. This is like Faces of Death. Do you remember? You guys remember
Yeah.
Faces of
Oh,
Death?
yeah, sure.
That's what it felt like. It was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm watching this. And from 93 to where it's become now, today it is a to me the most physical chess match you can
Yes.
ever witness, because you have the elite of the elite who just have this array of knowledge and technique and experience that basically you win or you lose by making one tiny minuscule mistake and it's over, and it's like it's just two absolute beasts going at it. And it's just not a physical beast, like they're just beating the crap out of each other anymore. It's an actual, like I said, chess match, and it's all about technical skill. And it's interesting because again, back in the 90s, it was like, I mean, these dudes that you look like they come off of out of the parking lot, and maybe besides like Ken Shamrock or something like that, I mean, they had some physical, attribution to them or whatever, but it's like, nowadays it's like they're all just these like peak performance, and what they go through to just have that little bit of an edge over that other guy is just incredible. And then the ranking system and everything, that's been a huge change to the sport as well. And I think
Right.
that makes a huge difference because I mean, even if you think about if you're watching football and stuff, like college football or whatever, it's like if you just have like, say Nebraska back in the 90s, for example, playing up against Pacific, it's like we knew we were walking out 72-0 on that game, but that's the thing. You don't do that in UFC. You don't take a guy who's got one professional fight up against a guy who's got 18 professional fights and he's 18-0 with 17 finishes. It's like because he's going to murder him.
Yeah.
So they needed to have that.
It's you make a good point, and the football analogy is absolutely perfect because that's something that I cite a lot of times is how unpredictable the sport is. Like if you
Yeah.
see a lopsided matchup in any other sport, that like the betting line is in favor of
Right.
one team over another, where the betting lines on MMA are pretty even. Yeah,
Right.
sure
Yep.
there's the favorite and the underdog, but it's not by much of a spread
Yeah.
unless it's Amanda Nunes versus
Anybody.
that that first Pena
Yes.
Nunes fight.
Yes.
God, I wish I would have bet
Oh my
money
gosh, I
on
know.
that. I
Yes.
I did one of those DraftKings parlays for three
Yeah.
fights that night,
Nice.
just to see what would happen, and I bet like $5 just on a kind of a hypothetical, and the payout would have been close to 5 grand
Yeah.
if I would have hit all of those parlays. It was
Absolutely.
insane.
It was
But
insane. Yeah,
yeah,
I agree, man. Yeah, there's been a few of them where it's like a plus 980 or something like that, and you're
yep,
like, no way.
yep.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. But yeah, I don't know, man. So speaking of upsets and stuff, I mean, there was an upset on Saturday that was to me was one of the best fights I've seen all year, and that was Marab got beat by how do you say it? Piotr, I think is how you
Yeah,
actually pronounce
Piotr
it. Piotr
Jan.
Jan. And
Yeah.
man, that was an upset. And it was done so well because this is their second fight that they've had. And arguably, I think that Piotr probably won that first fight, but it was very close. But this time you could tell it's like he came in and he did exactly what he needed to do. And the fact that Marab is known for taking people down, and this is what we're kind of talking about offline a little bit, but so Dan, you probably don't know these guys or whatever, but so
I have
Marab,
no idea what you guys are
yeah,
talking about.
what are
I'm
you
just kidding.
saying?
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
This
But
is a
no,
recruitment video,
this
sir.
that's right. We're bringing you in. But so no, Marab, what he's known for is, and he's a good fighter, don't get me wrong, but what he's known for is like he shoots on you, he gets like a double leg or he wraps around your waist. And he basically just holds on to you and pulls you down to the mat over and over and over again. He very rarely gets anybody into a submission. I think he's had one knockout his entire career. I think he's had just one or two submissions. I think everything's been decision, which is kind of a boring way of doing it, but
Yeah.
whatever. Very active fighter, so I'll give him his credit. However, the thing is like that's what he's known for is just holding on to your waist and pulling you down. You just cannot do anything against the guy because he's just constantly pulling you all over the fence and all over the octagon. And so he shot on Piotr Jan 29 times, and Piotr stuffed him 27 of the 29. That's
Yeah.
never been done with Marab. So he only got 2 takedowns, and Jan actually had 5 of his own takedowns against Marab, which is, again, never happened. So fantastically done by him. It was fun. It was fun to watch.
It's just like poker, man. You
Yep.
gotta like, and I talk to fighters about this a lot. It's like you have to spend the time and watch your opponent's past fights because a
Right.
lot of guys are like bad poker players. They have certain tells
Yep.
and certain repeated moves that they do. And if you can master that, you can come out on top every time because
Yep.
people are always going to default to what they're comfortable with.
Correct.
So,
Well,
yeah.
and that's just their instinct of, because especially a lot of them with, I've been wrestling since I was 3 years old, kind of a thing. And it's like, well, that's where your instinct is. That's where you're always going to fall, your
Yeah.
muscle memory. And
Yeah.
what was cool about Jan is that he left his family and all of his friends and everything for the past 3 months. And that's something that he's never done before, is that he would basically come a week, maybe 2 weeks early, do a little bit of training, cut weight and stuff, and then fight. And this time he actually showed up 3 months early, left everything behind because he was that dedicated to getting his belt back. And like, I think it made the difference this time.
Yeah, and then that's champ mentality
Yep,
versus the rest, because guys that have that champ mentality are always in camp.
absolutely.
Guys that just take prize fights are only in camp for 6 weeks.
Right. Okay, so speaking of champs, so Bud losing his belt controversially, what are your thoughts on that?
I think Bud doesn't need a belt.
I agree. There you go.
Bud doesn't need a belt.
Yep.
He like in like, if you understand the reason why they took the belt,
Yes.
it's all because of BS sanctioning fees
Absolutely.
that were kind of skeezy in the first
Yep.
place.
Yep.
It's why people don't take boxing seriously.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is because of things like that. You have to think about the fact that boxing has what, 5 different governing organizations and different sanctions. So it's one belt and one sanction, and who gives a damn? Like,
Exactly.
he's already proven himself.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, it doesn't change anything. He still won.
Right.
Canelo
So
still says he's the best. So.
exactly. So to give a little bit of context to what happened, so Bud Crawford, he's a local guy here in Omaha, but he's currently the what weight division is he?
What was this the middleweight?
Middleweight, yeah. So a middleweight champion in boxing, world champion, and won his belt handily. And what happened was he had a $50 million purse, and this sanction group or whatever you want to call it, company that basically gives him the belt. So how they have it set up is they're supposed to get paid 6% of the purse for the belt. Like, basically, we made this, here you go, we get paid 6%. But then, since this was such a
belt.
but since this was such a expensive purse, they're like, well, I'm sorry, it's 3%, not 6%, 3%. They said this time, since it was such a large purse, we're only going to take 0.6% of your purse and stuff, for this, which still came to $300,000. Well, Bud's like, why do I owe you 300 grand for a stupid trophy? I'm not paying you 300 grand. It's something that I worked my tail off and I won this fight. Like, why do you get my money? So he's just like, I'm not going to pay it, And they're like, well, we strip you of the belt. He's like, I don't care. I'm still the champion. I beat the dude. Like, I don't care. It's a trophy. It's something I hang on the wall. I don't care. Like, big deal. I'm like, good for you, dude. Like,
that's kind of rad. Yeah.
It was so rad. I'm like, that's the way to do it, man.
And his Facebook or his Instagram tirade about it was amazing.
It was amazing. It
I have
was
to go back and read it.
Oh, dude. No, he did a video.
he did a video.
Oh,
and it was brutal. It was an Instagram live that he ended up turning into a reel.
Yes.
It was so good.
Dude, it was awesome. I got goosebumps watching it. I'm like, I love him so much. He's just he's just like, it was down to earth how he basically called him out on it. But but it was also, I don't want to say like professionally done, but it was like, I don't know how to put it. It was down to earth, but it was also like a big F you to the industry kind of a thing. And I don't know, man, it was awesome. You can just kind of tell, like, he wasn't so like, there's a little bit of Mike Tyson in there, I'll just say, because you have like guys like Floyd Mayweather or whatever, like they talk the business and everything. And Bud was just kind of like, F you, it's like, you could just tell he's from the streets and just like, F you, It was so awesome.
The best part about all of that is 24 hours later, Google released their list of top searched athletes for 2025. And Bud was number one.
Number one.
Sure. Yeah.
So if that doesn't underline everything, it's like, yeah. I mean, there's your punctuation mark, guys.
Yeah. Gosh, it's awesome. He's the man. I don't care what anybody says. He's the man.
That is awesome.
Fun stuff. But Anyways, no, but Mike, so for our listeners that people don't know Mike very well, which you should, but you don't, that's okay. But the thing is, Mike and I and Dan, we go way back. We used to all be musicians in the Omaha music scene way back in the day. And Mike, when did you start? You were in the 90s, weren't you? Late 90s?
So yeah, so I lived in Southwest Iowa in the mid 90s. And when I started in a 9-piece ska band that was at the perfect midpoint between Omaha and Des Moines.
Yeah.
And so my little ska band used to play shows with a big band called Slipknot. And we played one of their last shows before they went off and recorded their debut album. That band broke up, and it broke up probably 98. Actually, I think that's the last Slipknot show we played was when we split up. It was our last show. And then I kind of just like swam in the abyss trying to line up musicians. And I was like, okay, I can move to Des Moines. And at the time, Dan and I talked about this pretty explicitly,
Yeah.
where I'm not talking trash on Des Moines, but at the time in the Des Moines, if I would have moved to Des Moines, I would have ended up in a Slipknot clone band. Or
Yeah.
I could move to Omaha where there was a bit more diversity.
Sure.
And so I pulled the trigger, moved to Omaha in 99, did, 6 or 7 bands throughout the Omaha area between 1999 and 2012, and walked away from it happily.
Tell us how you really feel. That's funny. Oh man. So that's quite the dichotomy though, from ska and Slipknot together. Like that had to have been an interesting, like what was the crowd set like? I mean, were they
It was awful. It was to be honest with you. Okay. So here's the thing. Like we're all musicians, so
Right.
as musicians, we like everything. Like
Sure.
Yeah.
in the late 90s, you couldn't show that you liked everything. You had to
Right.
pick a lane, stay in your lane,
Mhm.
and like focus on your lane. But we like everything.
Sure.
But there's a great documentary, and I told Dan about this too. It's called Pick It Up Ska in the 90s, and it was about the third wave ska explosion that took off with like Goldfinger and Sam
Yeah.
Ferris and Real Big Fish. There's a scene in that where he talks about the 6-month period between, and it literally was like 6 months between when ska was on top of the world and nu metal took over. One of the guys from
Yeah.
Mad Caddies was talking about it, and he was talking about how it was all the same people. Like the guys that absolutely love ska jump ship to the nu metal
Yeah.
new metal
Isn't that
lane,
funny?
and like we're like, no, ska sucks. If you do ska, and honestly, I've always been late to the party. I've been bad about that.
Yeah.
So like, and it truly was like a 6-month period of time, because we're all like college age guys playing in ska bands, like playing all over Iowa. We're playing parties, we're playing high school dances. We're actually making some pretty good money at the time. And then we get this opportunity to play with Slipknot right before they signed. And one of my funny anecdotes about that is it was our group of friends we packed this YMCA auditorium in the small town in Iowa. And it was probably 2,000 seat auditorium. Weirdest place for Slipknot to be playing.
Sure.
And me being upbeat ska guy, thinking that it's all of our friends there. And like we had just played a Valentine's dance like 2 months before. I had the brilliant idea to bring candy with me to the show and throw it out into the audience while we were playing at a Slipknot show. And let me tell you guys, I still have scars from that candy being launched back at me and taking projectiles thrown at me.
Oh my gosh.
And so yeah, it was. So when I was done doing ska, I was kind of like, man, I got to do something a little bit different. And some people get into music and they know exactly what they want to do. It took me a good 5 years, if I'm being completely honest. Like, so I don't talk about it because I look at it as kind of like this humdrum, woe is me Eeyore thing. But like when I think about like 3/4 Evil and 3QE and the metamorphosis that went on with just that band itself, like there's a lot of times where I talk about, some of our very first shows we're playing with you guys in Downshift. And I tell people frequently, I'm like, we probably should have given it a beat of maybe a year or two, so we could have like drilled down to the sound that we actually leaned into, as opposed to what we first stepped on stage with. First impressions are a bitch, man.
Yeah.
And,
For sure.
that first year was painful. I'll be honest.
Well, I thought you guys are awesome, man.
Thank
I
you.
remember, like, dead serious. I'm not joking, Mike. I'm not just saying this to, rub you the right way. But no, dead
It's
serious.
not that kind of podcast.
It's not that
Man.
kind of podcast. It could
Where are we
be
going with
after
this?
dark. Yeah, that's right. We were loud
After dark.
After dark. We were loud in a different way. No, but
Oh God.
No. But like I remember Three Quarter Evil very distinctly, and I thought that you guys were so well polished, and I thought you're a great vocalist, Mike. And
Thank you.
I would have put you guys up there, top 10 Omaha bands for sure. So I mean,
Thank you.
I know it's easy to be humble and be like, oh man, we weren't, but I mean, there was Downshift, same thing. I mean, we'd play one show, there'd be 16 people there, and we'd be like, what the hell happened? And then 3 weeks later, we play another show and be a sold out, like, well, okay, and people be digging it or whatever, and you just never know. But it's just, yeah, it's kind of the vibe back then in Omaha. You just, and then plus sometimes you're starving artists, so you're playing any show that you can get, and sometimes you got a little oversaturated and you play too many shows, but
Right,
it was
right.
what it was. But
it was also the birth of the internet message board era, like the pre-social media hate era.
Yes.
Was the message board era.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of hard to not get in your own headspace. Like, at the time, we've all been in those situations where you have this vision of what your artistic endeavor is versus what the reality of your artistic endeavor is. And sometimes they're two totally different things. And I think it took us, we dropped our first album in 2001, but our second album that came out in 2002, I felt was more representative of what we wanted to be.
Sure.
But by that point in time, we'd already kind of blown our load in Omaha and made that first impression to where we found more success, like going to Des Moines, going to Wichita, going to Topeka. And like, we could go to a place like Wichita and draw 300 people. We could go to Des Moines and damn near sell out House of Bricks, but we couldn't draw a stick figure whenever we walked into the Ranch Bowl sometimes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was just kind of the nature of the beast back in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
The one thing that we went through as well was, I mean, you're kind of talking about like an identity crisis kind of a thing in a way, and one thing that Downshift did to itself, in a way, was we got new singers, and not me being one of them, the second one. And that was very difficult because being in my aspect of it, it was, hey, the first show, bringing this crowd of all these people who love Downshift, and then they're like, who's that guy? I don't like him. He's not the original guy. And then it was a few shows afterwards of just, crickets and stuff. And I was like looking at the rest of the band, like, I'm sorry, guys, and they're like, it's all right. We're going to work it out. It's okay. It'll get there. And it eventually did, which was fine, but it just, it's hard. A transition. And I think, just as a musician, Mike, I mean, I think that you know this as well. It's just, you're always evolving, whether it's your own band or whether it's going to a different thing or doing something solo. You just evolve, you grow and you evolve. And so I mean, we all did it. We were like on, if Downshift would have dropped our second, I mean, we did do some recordings. We have a bunch of demos and stuff. We were going heavy into the industrial stuff, and that would have been where we were going with it. It was still very new metal-esque, but very much into the industrial. And we should revisit those, Dan, and maybe put out something. That'd be kind of fun. But
we can find them.
I got them.
You do?
So yep, I do. Yeah, we called it, like, the demos were called like it was like we recorded the demo on Memorial Day. We called it, we just like wrote down like Memorial Day Massacre. And so I got those demos.
Yeah, I'm gonna need to take a listen to that.
Yeah.
What songs were on that? Let's see if I remember. Names.
Unfortunately, Follow wasn't on there. That was the one
that's the one song we can't find. Yeah,
that's the one song that we can't find that I think would have done really good. But then I can't remember the names of the songs. It's been so long. But I'll pull it out. I'll send it over to you. But
Yeah,
anyway,
please do.
sorry, Mike.
That's wild.
We're just
No, I love it. I love it.
That's funny.
It's great because when I hear this kind of banter about other bands, it takes me back because we have such commonalities.
Right.
Whenever it's like everybody's got those lost discs of lost songs.
Yeah.
Like all the stuff and everybody believes that the stuff that they didn't release is the best stuff they've ever written.
That would have been the best
100%,
thing ever.
100%.
Yep.
Yep.
If I would have just stubbed my toe that one time, we would have had this out. We would have been huge.
But it's kind of like, I think every musician and especially every project kind of goes through kind of this continual metamorphosis, in terms of what their sound is. And, I think the best example, unfortunately not new metal, but I think the best example is AFI.
Yes,
they continually reinvent their sound, and that kind of became the expectation. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, now you don't know what to expect, so you don't expect anything.
Yeah.
And I think that that's kind of the intrigue there. So I think, we were all kind of on the right path in doing that, especially in a time where everything, it's like, okay, everybody's trying to get their record deal. Everybody's trying to, find some kind of access. It's like, okay, radio format, stay within this box, and, that's your best shot. Right.
Yeah. Right.
And I've been thinking about this recently because, like, if we had kind of maybe taken that other approach, maybe something else would have worked out. You know what I mean? Instead of kind of, conforming to, what was going on at the time, as opposed to kind of following the artistic kind of road. It's like, okay, what if we did more of this instead? And, and I think that kind of, that's what makes music original. And I think people are afraid to be original because they're trying to, achieve something.
Sure.
I've been reading Rick Rubin's book again. So, I apologize if I'm kind of like,
you're getting all sorts of philosophical
with this. Yeah.
No,
I think
you make a good point though.
Go ahead.
You make a really great point in that regard in mentioning AFI specifically. Like, I just had an artist on my show, a guy by the name of 2 Feet. And he talks about how he doesn't listen to a lot of other artists sometimes because he finds their work bleeding into his.
Yep.
And, you made that. The reason the AFI example sticks out to me so much, Dan, is I remember when Sing the Sorrow came out and 3QE was kind of like, we were really in the thick of our wannabe Incubus second album era.
Yeah.
And Sing the Sorrow came out, and that just totally flipped me on my own head. As a Guns N' Roses fan, as a guy that's a big fan of big guitar solos and all of that, I listened to that album and I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this funk bass soul stuff anymore. And so that's kind of what bridged the gap from 3QE and us eventually becoming Reagan era. Was like that desire to just be a straightforward rock band.
Yeah.
So
well, I was just gonna say that same point in a different way, but I think influences obviously are kind of what drives a record, whether good or bad. And I think I've heard a whole bunch of bands like Creed and a whole bunch of other bands have said that they'll shut themselves down for 6 months of listening to anything else but themselves, just so they don't have those outside influences. And it's very easy to do that, especially if you're like really plugged in. You're gonna see the things that are popping off and everything. It's really easy to be like, oh man, that's really cool, I'd like to do that kind of a thing. And one thing I've told Dan this before, one of the best bits of advice that Dan ever gave. Now hold on, his head's gonna get really big here, but one of the best bits of advice that he ever gave as a musician, as a writing songwriter, was there was I won't name names, but there was someone in our band that came to one of our practices one day, and he was like, I love this song by 36 Crazy Fists. I want to do something just like this. And he just kept playing it over and over again. Like, we got to do this. We got to do this. And so we're trying to appease him. We're trying this and trying this. And he's like, no, it's not right. It's not right. And it was just, he got a little angry and stuff. And like, we kind of got done with it and went our separate ways that night and stuff. And like, Dan, he dropped something really cool. And he said, no offense to this guy whatsoever, but he said, there's a difference of wanting to sound like someone and wanting to be someone. And that's the difference right there. And like, dude, I've creatively have heard that in my head since then, for the past 25 years of anything that I create, whether it's podcasts or, whether it's songwriting, whether it's whatever it is, I always think that I'm like, am I actually doing this because this is what I'm trying to do, or am I doing this to be like somebody else? It's like pretty good, man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep.
And it's, it's one of those things that, I still see it a lot today, with people wanting to, and you can just tell by listening to their music, they were trying to do that. They were trying to do this, and it's like, just be yourself. That's all anybody cares about anyways.
Yep.
They don't want it's, and I go on this rant a lot with cover songs, because it's the same mentality. Nobody wants to hear a metal band cover a metal song because they could just go listen to that band. You know what I mean? And it's the same kind of mentality,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So one of the things that I think we all were challenged with as local regional musicians that we don't put to the forefront of our minds very much is that while we were trying to write music and promote music, we built up all of these soft marketing skills that might have influenced our art as well. And nobody really says that. Nobody verbalizes that. And it's like, and you can't deny that.
Yeah.
Because there are times where you're in the writing space where you're just like, what is the audience reaction going to be? And you get in your own head, and sometimes you end up writing yourself into circles. Like the last band I did, which honestly ended up being my most successful of all the local bands that I was in, Audition. We had a complete third album written. All the instrumental parts were ready to go. I could not write lyrics, melodies, anything to save my life because of my own overanalysis of what I was doing. Yeah. And a lot of that is centered on those soft marketing skills of just keeping the engine going.
That's such a cool way of putting it, man. But that's exactly what it comes down to. It's just kind of seeing what others are doing and stuff, and you see somebody else having a success in something, and then you're like, why not me? Okay, I'm going to start doing that as well, and that's a good way of putting it, because it happens. I mean, it happens on a large scale even. I mean, you do see a lot of different, big bands that they'll kind of fluctuate with. I mean, look at Metallica. I mean, with Saint Anger, like, what were they thinking? It's like, holy crap, in one way they're trying to be artistic and changing and, avenues, Lars with his drums, horrible. But either which way, the fact is that they shouldn't have. They should have just done what they did and kept evolving by getting better at it, but not completely given up what they gave up on. Because there's other bands that do change, and they do it well, like Asking Alexandria, for example. I mean, they came out, they were freaking heavy when they came out,
straight metalcore, wasn't it?
Straight metalcore, like one of the heaviest. Like, they were up there with Suicide Silence, if you ask me. I mean, maybe not that death metal heavy, but they were freaking making a huge name for themselves of being heavy.
Yeah.
And now they're just like straight up rock, and they do a damn good job at it.
Bring Me the Horizon, same way.
Yep. I was gonna say, Bring Me the Horizon, another one. Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know, a 100%. Little bit lesser known band, but I See Stars, same thing, but
it's, and I think it goes back to kind of getting a taste of the industry. It's like, okay, we did what we wanted to do, and we went and we starved for that. But if we try this, we might eat a little bit better. You know what I mean? So a lot of that plays into it too, I think, which is unfortunate, but that's just, it's how the industry is.
It totally is.
And you're playing in bands, which you're like, that's 4 or 5 different personalities with 4 or 5 different sets of desires. So the haves and have-nots are going to leak into your creative endeavor from time to time. And sometimes you agree to disagree, or you agree to agree just for the sake of keeping the peace. In order to keep the engine running.
Yeah.
So,
oh yeah.
I'm using that engine mentality over and over and over.
Yeah.
And then just the influences that, say you get new members, the influences that they bring in, sometimes good, sometimes, bad. But again, it could change your overall. I mean, like for example, so say talking about Downshift, for example, I felt like, when I joined, we had a really good cohesive setup and everything. And then we had a producer join our band who just, I mean, it was like, he could do whatever we wanted him to do. And then he just had this endless creative mindset with computers and all this other stuff. And it was just like, that's why we were really trying to lean into the industrial side, but we were really siloed. We couldn't really do what we wanted to do. And then he joined and it was like, boom, it just like exploded. I was like, there we go. This is what we needed. And his influence was just incredible. And really released, the chains that were kind of holding us back on things.
And I think too, and I make this analogy a lot too, especially when, I talk to people or involved in projects where it's kind of like one guy. It's like I always considered a band kind of like a chemistry set. It's like everybody has their own little thing that is going to contribute to create something that can't be created in any other way. So and that's what makes something truly original. So when I see bands that it's just kind of like, okay, here's your main songwriter and the rhythm section just falls in line or whatever the case is, it just, I feel like it does a disservice to the music a little bit. Because you're not kind of operating at that like peak creative level.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
100%.
That's just how I've always seen bands.
Well, and take exactly what you just said and take the marketing element from that for just a moment. Like, remember back in the day when you would listen to a band and you knew the name of every single member of the band?
Yep.
That monoculture has gone away.
It's
gone away in the post-streaming, post-social media world, to where like, you knew every member of Limp Bizkit, you knew every member of Korn, and then when a sub player came in, you knew that too. And I think sometimes we kind of take that for granted. To where these individual personalities were just important, as you said, to the chemistry of a project, as that one guy that maybe everybody knows for the project.
That's a solid point. We were just kind of actually talking about that off mic a little bit about the MMA community too. It's just, I wonder what that is. I wonder it's just the way that we digest things. I think you're right with just like the streaming and stuff. Everything's just so right there, and you don't invest so much time into something because that's another thing. When you don't have that hard media, like I'm going to go way back here and say, I remember like on like one of the first, it wasn't my first album, but one of the biggest albums first albums I remember like opening up and reading everything in it was the Poison Open Up and Say Ah album.
Same.
And I just remember looking through it and seeing their pictures and stuff and remembering their names. And then everybody always had a character name, Ricky Rocket and, Bret Michaels and Bobby Doll, and stuff like that, and it's just like, you don't see that very much anymore. I mean, even when we were, I changed the spelling of my name, the first name or whatever, just to be a little bit more, different, I guess, but because he didn't want to, I mean, Dan went by DC and Cameron went by Cam and Paul went by Dr. Love. And,
and I think that goes to show how big of an influence Korn was on everybody.
True.
Monkey and Head and Fieldy.
Yeah, but I think even before that, everybody, there's a lot of bands that were coming up with like character names and, it was just what you did to kind of stand out and be different and be memorable.
And then you found out their real name and you're like, oh God. Like now I know why you wanted the nickname.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got a recent CC DeVille story that I will not talk about on air, but whenever we're done recording.
Nice. Okay. Well, folks, it was great.
We'll see you guys.
Speaking
later.
of real names and what have you. But,
nice. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to write that down because I'm going to hold you to this. Like, that's funny.
Yeah. I actually here's a fun story about CC DeVille and different names. So it was a couple years ago. I don't know if I've ever told this story in a public setting, and no, you cannot see it. Nobody will ever see it. Steel Panther had an open audition for bass players a couple years ago. It was just an open call. Send us your audition video. So nice. I created an entire character because that's the basis of Steel Panther, right? They're all characters. So I created this character and I played off CC DeVille and the name was DC Cadillac.
Nice.
I thought that was super clever.
You ruined it. You were forever DC clever. Cadillac. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Oh. And and here's something else. And maybe I'll show a still of it because it is incredibly embarrassing. But I mean, if you don't know Steel Panther, it's very adult theme driven, we'll say.
Sure.
So I thought it would be hilarious for like the entire like interview portion, because I, played a song or whatever. I thought it would be hilarious if I went and I got one of those massive cucumbers from Costco and taped it to the side of my leg.
Yes.
So the entire video, I'm sitting there kind of, with my hand on my leg, and it's just there. Nice. And I thought it was the funniest thing ever. And clearly I did not get a phone call or a response to that video, but
my gosh. Dude,
I want to see the guy that beat you.
That's what I'm saying. Right?
Here's the thing. The guy who beat me, his name was Ricky Thrash. And he's I don't know if he's big on YouTube, but he's big on Instagram. Yeah. And he's like, his channel is very well done. And he's been on Musician Mansion.
Yeah, I was going to say he's on Musician Mansion. Yeah.
He got the gig for a tour, and that's all it took. And then he was done. And then in true music industry fashion, they just went with the tour manager, they created this spider character for him, and that's been the guy ever since.
I wonder why they got rid of Ricky, though. I wonder if he was just a little bit too larger than life. Because, like, if you watch him on that Musician Mansion, I mean, he is a character, and he leans into it hard and stuff. But so that's what I thought. I thought he would have blended really, really well with them. So it's interesting.
And from what I saw, he did very much. Like, the persona worked. They kept the name. Like, it's like, okay, yeah, I concede.
Yeah, but he ain't
I didn't get a call back anyway,
though.
So it doesn't really matter.
I just thought that was super
Cadillac. Yeah, right.
That's awesome, dude. Oh, you're
so
gonna
stupid.
get
It's so stupid.
You're gonna get so much Cadillac stuff from me from here on out. It's not even funny.
Any and all comments referencing that will be deleted on YouTube, by the way.
Bro, it is so
don't bother.
I love this so much. You made my year. That is so good.
Yeah.
But that's actually
Happy
very
holidays.
intuitive, man. That's awesome. DC Cadillac. That's great.
Because it's like everything was a play off of something else,
Yeah,
Sticks it in you. Come on, yes. Michael Starr, like, that's not his real name. His real name's Ralph.
Right,
you know?
Yeah.
And Satchel, like, come on.
Yeah.
His name's Russell.
That's funny.
But yeah. So yeah. Anyway.
So Mike, so you got to play with Slipknot, though, which is obviously a huge deal. That's pretty cool, especially right before they blew up, to what they were and everything. So seeing them back then to what they are now, like, how does that make you feel?
It's pretty crazy because back in the day, and I'm sure you guys are aware of this, like before they got their deal, and I don't know if I'm telling something I probably shouldn't, but here we are. There was a very tight, for a period of time, no partying policy, where they didn't party after the shows. They were like a very regimented, well-oiled machine. Yeah. And I remember after that last show we played with them, Sid and my buddy Dustin pulling up in my buddy Dustin's oddly Cadillac. And Sid had like all of these Ice House beers that he had just bought because we weren't of age yet. And they're like, get in the car, we're going partying. And I'm like, and what's funny is my regret is like, I didn't do it. I didn't go out with those guys that night. But years later, whenever Sean was doing the Midwest Music Summit, I think 2002, 2003, old drummer from 3QE and Reagan era, Doug Decker, approached Sean, and I didn't go. I didn't go to that I think I was out of town or something. And Doug goes, hey, Sean, do you remember Mike Clark? And then like Sean told Doug this whole story that I totally forgot about, which was really cool because it's like by that point in time, they had 2 albums, verge of coming out with volume 3. Sure. They were the biggest thing in the world. And like to be remembered, even though I only played a small handful of shows with them, that's pretty awesome. So it's continually, it's been inspiring to watch. I've got opinions about kind of where they're at now, as I'm sure everybody does. Like, I'm always going to be loyal to the original 9. Sure. Even though the original 9 weren't the original 9.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the original 9 that were on the first 2 albums that, but yeah, I don't know. So.
Awesome. So, okay. So clearly the 2 best new metal bands you played with, Slipknot, Downshift. Who's the third? No, I'm just joking.
Oh Oh man, you're not going to put me in that position. I don't know, man. I don't know.
No,
You
so
guys
three.
count as two.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh, that's awesome. No, but so three-quarter evil though. I mean, you guys, would you consider yourself new metal, or were you more you're more
So the
rock,
way
right?
the I think we just kind of came out at the
At
time
the
that new
time, that's what I was gonna say.
yeah, new metal was blowing up to where almost everything was adjacent to it.
Yeah.
When it was going mainstream, it was hard to categorize it because everything was so adjacent to it. You go to a
Right.
new metal show, it was not uncommon to see somebody that was off genre or off script.
Yeah.
Like I mean, you guys have talked about it before. Like in even Brandon Boyd himself kind
Yeah.
of talks about how he hated the fact that science kind of
Yep.
got them lumped in
Yep.
and labeled with the new metal thing, but it was very much of the time, dreadlock band.
Yeah.
But
Yep. What are you gonna do? Yep.
but the way I kind of viewed us is specifically for that first album, we were kind of a meandering band. We were just trying
Yeah.
to figure it out. Like
Yep.
there were some elements that were very Faith No More-esque. There was some
Yeah.
Chili Peppers-esque stuff. There was kind of the hip hop rock stuff, a little bit of reggae stuff in there. I don't think we knew what we were doing on that first album, but whenever we dialed in on that second album and we kind of started getting a little bit more riff rock, a little bit more like, kind of playing around with our sound and figuring out how to play together as a band, it was very much like Incubus adjacent, like
Yeah.
second album Incubus, like make yourself Incubus adjacent stuff, which I was very, very, very proud of. But like I said, once the AFI thing kind of blew up and we all kind of started listening to different things, that's kind of when we knew it was, even though Sophia John told me not to do it, it was the right time to change the name of the band and became Reagan Era.
Reagan Era. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was that like? Because I've been in a band before too, where we actually built a name and we had a decent following, and then we changed names and it killed us. But Reagan Era, I mean, you guys did well as well.
Yeah, Reagan Era only existed for about a year, but
Yeah.
the thing that had happened during that time is as Reagan Era was coming into an inception, I had started the No Pride Records project with Jesse Otterson. We had started that and we had kind of built this whole co-op of like 6 bands, which was Trip and Default, Reagan Era, More Than Yesterday, which used to be Blacklight Sunshine,
Yeah.
Eyes Catch Fire,
Yeah.
Civic Minded, and we had an Old Boy Network. So
Yeah.
it was the 6 of us all together. And I think that the No Pride project really elevated Reagan Era because it proved that project worked. Because the
Nice.
whole purpose of the No Pride thing wasn't to be considered as a record label, but more
Sure.
so as a musical co-op where we're just constantly elevating each other. Like, and that was kind of when the Ranch Bowl was starting to close down and
Yeah.
decline.
Yeah.
So we were having to get creative. So that really helped Reagan Era kind of springboard into marketing. But Reagan Era only existed a year and a half as
Yeah.
Reagan Era. So
Well, that's interesting because again, like you bring up Civic Minded and then just that whole collective is really, really cool. So like I remember Phil from back in the day from, Civic Minded stuff. And actually it was kind of funny, just real quick little caveat. So my son was going to an academy. This is like 7 years ago. He's going to school at this academy in Omaha. And his art teacher was Phil's dad. And I'm like, no way. I was like, how the heck did we end up here? It's like this like private Catholic art school or art, the school and stuff. And he taught art. And I was like, it just blew me away that in either which way. But so you guys had that collective. And I think that's very, very cool that you guys did that because again, I don't say this to disparage the scene or anything. It's like, it's our home, and everything. But at that time too, I think that it was important that you guys did that because there was a lot of backstabbing also in the scene. We've brought that up before. And it was just, it was kind of hard to be in because you get to a point where you're almost like, I don't know who my friends are right now because you play a gig with somebody and you try to help them out by taking them to some other gigs and stuff. And next thing you know, they're stabbing you in the back or you don't even know this band, you never played with them before or whatever. And they're just killing you on Slam Omaha on the website and stuff or whatever. And it's like, what is going on? Why are we eating each other up? But here you guys had your collective and that was really cool that you guys did that.
Well, it's and that was the intent. The intent was to rise above all of that. And people can say that and they can do things symbolically to, say that and demonstrate that. But even within that, there was still a little backbiting going on.
Sure.
And honestly, if I'm being sincerely frank about it, that was kind of what led to me walking away from music completely in 2011. Was I Arising, by the time I got to that band, because I had Reagan Era, and then I started a band. Reagan Era ended pretty badly. It was gross. It ended in a very public way. A couple members of the band had, this was when MySpace was a new thing.
Mm.
They
Oh,
had
yeah.
messaged a different drummer and a different singer from the Reagan Era MySpace account, and it's like
Oh,
we all had access to it.
Right.
And so I was able to read all of this, and
oh,
it was it and honestly, it's like these are some of your best friends, and
right.
this happens. But
Yeah.
what was happening at the time is I was also writing a lot of music that didn't fit Reagan Era, didn't fit 3QE. It was something totally different. So I did a project immediately after Reagan Era with Corey Wilson from Trip and a Fault,
Mm.
Oh,
Sure.
sure.
called
Yeah.
Right Side Impact. We did that for about a year. And then I thought I was done with music. I thought I was done with music. My first wife was pregnant with my daughter, and I was just like, okay, I'm done. I can't do this
Yep.
anymore.
Yep.
And so I was, for like 9 months, I was sitting on the couch watching Scrubs reruns, eating and getting fat. And Corey came over one day and he's like, we need to put a band together again. And so that's how we ended up with Arising. And
Yeah.
by the time we did Arising, I make this long-winded diatribe to say, by the time we did Arising, I intentionally made it a very isolated project. It's like, you want to play a show with us? Great. We're going to be very upfront with what our business arrangement is before we play a show together. We
Sure.
do an even split of really nice looking glossy flyers. We split the door evenly. We do this, we do that. And it was all very transparent. But by the time Arising had run its course, there was some backbiting involved with that too. And that was just like, at that point, I was like, dudes, I'm 35 years old at this point. I just can't do this childish
Right.
mumbo
Yeah.
jumbo anymore. I'm done. I'm
Yeah.
okay with being done.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Priorities change for sure. That's,
Yeah.
it's just, especially when you got a family and kids and responsibilities. And, it's just like, I would rather spend time with my family who bring me joy rather than dealing with a bunch of dudes bitching at each other about
Right,
stupid
right.
things. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's sad because like something that I love so much, and I still do to this day, is the Omaha music scene. But whenever it starts to resemble a junior high girls' locker room,
Yeah.
I'm out.
Yep. Yep. I hear you.
I'm out.
Well, I
Absolutely.
can safely say it's still that, guys. Not much has changed.
That's funny.
I'm kidding. I'm half kidding.
No.
There is still some of that, but it's not, anymore, at least in Omaha and where my band plays, which is, kind of, well, Omaha, Lincoln kind of thing anymore. Cause, we're all in our mid to late 40s. So, going
Yep.
any further than Des Moines is a little rough for us anymore. But it's not even really so much a scene anymore, unfortunately. I think when we were, late 90s, early 2000s, we kind of had a home base, being
Yeah.
Ranch Bowl in Omaha, and we were able to kind of hang out there and, make friends and converse and cross promote and all of those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And I think that throughout the course of time, that has obviously, the Ranch Bowl went away, but the scene kind of dwindled the more time went on, and now
Yeah.
it's kind of like, and I'll be perfectly honest with you, we have trouble finding bands to play with in Omaha.
Yeah,
It's a struggle.
crazy.
It's a struggle. Where 20 years ago, one post on Slam Omaha, who wants to play on this date, and you get
Yeah.
5 or 6 bands who are like,
Yep.
yep, sign me up.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it's tough anymore. It's real
That's
tough.
crazy.
One thing you
Yeah.
guys have done incredibly well, though, is like Narcotic Self has really picked their shots, though, too. Like,
Mhm. Oh, that's very true. Yeah.
especially in this later era.
Yeah.
of the band, that you guys are really strategically, and I think that's
Yeah.
important for any artistic endeavor
Mhm.
these days. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter whether it's a band or a podcast or anything
Yep.
that you do art wise. You have to have some sense of strategy and
Yep.
have to have some end goal, some point A to point B moment, and
Yeah.
you tend to bypass all the dramatic crap
Yeah.
if you focus on that end goal.
Stick to the plan. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's definitely something we've been very conscious of for sure. Is doing things, according to an overall, kind of goal. And I mean, this year, 2025 was, we played with some pretty heavy hitters, and it was all in Lincoln,
Yeah.
we played with Fear Factory, we played with Suffocation, we played with Exhorter, like all of these, kind of top tier, metal and thrash bands. And, it's like, man, that was a trip, but we didn't play Omaha at all. We couldn't book anything in Omaha.
Yeah, it's just
It was a struggle.
crazy.
We have something. We're actually playing with the Psycho Stick.
Psycho Stick. I saw that.
In
Yeah.
Omaha.
Awesome.
There you go.
And
It's just been all waiting for this moment, Dan.
When I got the call about that show,
Yep.
and I was like, are we talking about the same band from like 15 years ago? And it was like a complete joke. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, sure, cool. Sign me up.
They pull a crowd,
I'm game.
though.
I'm game to play anyway. So it's like, sure, why not?
Yep.
But that kind of speaks to the booking strategies, though. I was telling you guys before we pressed record that I took a conference call with a publicist the other day, and he has a lot of big name artists. And, we were talking about Omaha, and he was talking about, how he remembers, and, about how the New York Times and Spin Magazine wrote about Omaha being the next Seattle and all of this stuff. And he cited the Saddle Creek movement and the diversity here and how all the bands that he worked with really enjoyed Omaha. But he said the problem that he's run into recently in the past year is that a lot of these bands are not selling out their shows in Omaha like they are selling out in other markets.
Yeah.
And the belief is maybe it's because, and I say this out of all love, Omaha, maybe it's because Omaha has expanded itself too much and created too many options as far as live music venues go, to where it could end up having a backfire effect. Like you're not going to bring back the same bands that, we all love.
Right. Well, I agree.
Right.
And I think that there's a lot of merit to that because, and don't get me wrong, I think all the venues that are here right now are all very nice too. So they're able to compete. Whereas back in the height of the scene, it was like you had different venues, but they are all known for certain things,
Yeah.
So like the Ranch Bowl was the place. I mean, it was the national acts. It was, if you were anybody in the Omaha scene, you're playing there. As just a fan of music, you knew if you went to the Ranch Bowl to watch a show, you're going to see something cool. Cog Factory, if you're going to the Cog Factory, you know what you're getting: a kick to the face.
Literally
the smell of urine in the background, it's drywall hanging everywhere and stuff, but it was rad, and it was just violent and just raw, visceral, just energy, and it was awesome, and then like the Asylum and all these other places, there was definitely venues, but they all had their own feeling. And it was almost like a video game where you went to different levels, and it was like, okay, level 3, it's all dark and there's, chains hanging out, and level 4, it's in the forest, and it was kind of like that. There's just these different eras, but like now it's like all the venues are similar in their own ways, and they're very nice, and they do a good job, but it's just, you kind of miss that from the scene back in the day,
I agree.
And I think that we kind of got a little bit of, so when the Ranch Bowl closed and they bulldozed it, there was another bar down the street that kind of tried to help out a little bit in terms of the scene. And that was, at the time, it was called Shea Riley's, and it turned into the Hideout that a very good friend of mine, Dave Blackman, was part owner in. And, that it wasn't the same, but it was something, it did feel like a scene.
It still had a vibe.
There and and you can do the same things that we used to do. In fact, I remember, and this is long before, Shay's and the Hideout, I remember talking to him at the Ranch Bowl one night. He's like, man, I'm here so much, I need a break from this place. Like, that's how much I'm here. Because we would go there and hang out too.
Absolutely.
And so he started going to this bar down the street called Shea Riley's, and that's kind of how the whole thing kind of started. And it's like, makes sense.
which
But
was its own vibe. Like I said, it was,
yeah.
gosh, I have so
And I
many
mean,
memories there. It was fun.
yeah, and I mean, it was something.
You
Yep.
know, could you ever think about what Shea Riley's could have been or the hideout could have been if it
Yeah.
would have had one more bay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Like just
Agreed.
one more bay to the,
Mhm.
like east or west of it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Whew.
And
It
I
was
know
capacity that killed that.
Correct. It
Yeah.
was. Yeah.
And
You
I
just
know
couldn't
that
stuff enough people in there.
they explored any and all options.
Yeah.
And because I'm trying to remember who was next door to the east. I think it was like a salon or something. It was, because I remember the stylists were getting all sorts of pissed off when shows would start early.
Yeah.
The parking lot would be full, and people outside smoking cigarettes all over the place, and all that kind of stuff. But anyways, but I think but ever since then, because that's now also closed.
Yeah.
That changed ownership, and one more time before it closed, it became the Lookout Lounge.
Yep.
And then finally it was closed.
There's no other old venues anymore, is there? I can't think of a single one, and it's sad.
Now that you say that, I'm struggling to think of one.
The only one I could think of, and even it has been completely gutted and redone, it's the Royal Grove.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah, in Lincoln. Yeah. Yep.
It's a lot nicer now.
Yeah.
I know, I'm calling fights there Saturday.
Are you really?
Nice. Good for you,
Nice.
dude. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
It's yeah. That was in desperate need of a facelift.
Yeah, it was.
Thinking back to the last show I played.
Yeah.
But and I mean, the Bourbon Theater in Lincoln, that's changed hands a number of times and been a couple different things. But that's been something else. And there's a bar across the street called the 1867. That we did a show there this year with Exhorter, actually. Kind of a Shay's Hideout kind of vibe there. But
And they just closed.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Oh man.
I knew
That's
it
too
was
bad.
for sale. I wonder if she sold it. Huh. Yeah, that's a drag, but
Yeah.
hey, it was for sale, so I mean, it was kind of the end.
Yeah, but
the
it's
writing was on
probably
the
not-
wall. But
Yeah. It's probably not just Omaha
Anyway.
too. I would imagine plenty of places are going through the same thing.
Mhm.
Everybody's trying to revamp their downtowns and everything, everywhere that you
well,
go.
and Mike, you may know more about this. Like, I read that Lincoln is like they either created or are creating like a music district.
So they're creating some sort of entertainment district that's kind of down by the Haymarket. They've already got a skate park built, and
Really?
it's going to be kind of almost like what Omaha did with the riverfront. So
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Is
it's
it
gonna
over
be
by like the
Gotcha.
rail yard, or is it
it's more towards the actual Haymarket.
okay?
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, and it's just I was actually just there yesterday and just walked by the construction site yesterday. There was some sort of craft market my wife wanted to go to. Anyway, but yeah, I mean it looks pretty massive. I mean, there's a lot of old buildings that it looks like are kind of under renovation, just like every other entertainment district in every big city.
Sure.
I don't go back to Omaha as much as I'd like. I couldn't believe the Blackstone district when I walked through it or drove through it a couple of months back. I was like, when did all of this go?
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yep.
And that's exactly what I was thinking about when I drove through there. It's like, what would it have been like if this had been the early 2000s, pre-social media? Like, how many options there could have been?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the change has been wild.
It sure has been.
Yeah. So anyway, wanted to kind of just, to give our listeners a little bit more kind of coming back to Caught in the Mic, a little bit more insight into what you're doing over there. And I guess my first question, if you had to pick maybe a handful of episodes for somebody new to your show, which ones would those be?
Ooh, that's a really good question. It has been an evolving beast.
Right.
So I've been doing the show for 5 years now. The video portion is actually only been the last year and a half. which is crazy. I encourage anybody that gets into the podcast world. I'm not saying that I do it right or wrong, but do get into the audio portion first. Get your bearings there first. Get your interviewing skills in shape. But I'm glad that I waited. So I'll leave that. So most of what I'm going to recommend is going to be within the last year and a half.
Sure.
This last year, I feel like the show has really hit its stride. I've had Nick Hexum from 311 on. I think that is one of my favorite
Great episode.
episodes.
Yeah, great episode.
Stephen Christian, the singer of Anne Boleyn, did an episode with me, and honestly, to this day, still one of my most favorite episodes. You know, I'm pretty free flow spiritual guy. Like I don't kind of abide by any one thing, but he is such a great orator. He's a pastor at a church as well, and so talking with him, we talk about jujitsu and all of that, but we also talk about why he walked away from Anne Boleyn not once but twice.
Wow.
And it all centers on the core of his family and being true to his family. So Stephen Christian of Anne Boleyn, Nick Hexum from 311. There was a recent one that just oddly, I had Sean Stockman from Boys to Men on over the summer. He's got a project with Billy Mann, who's a super producer for he works with Pink and all, and they've got a project called Chosen Family. That was a really great episode. A lot of my MMA stuff, it'll surprise you. If you are not a fan of MMA, go listen to an MMA episode. I challenge you, because we don't talk stats. We don't talk about holds. We don't talk about submissions.
Very topical.
Yep. We
in a good way. Yep.
Yeah, we talk about a fighter's mindset, what it takes to be a fighter, and like a person's life journey. And I think that's kind of the core of the Caught on the Mic core values is, I don't give a damn what you're doing. Like, I want to know how you got there. Yeah. So I the way I structure an episode, past, present, future. Let's talk about what got you into this. Let's talk about what you're doing now. Let's talk about some of your viewpoints for the future. I have 2 rules. I don't talk politics. I don't talk religion. I won't talk anything divisive. And so, I say just kind of go to my website, go to caughtonthemic.com/past episodes, find something that tickles your fancy, click on it, take a listen to it. Because it's a very, very, very wide variety. I'm 215 episodes deep now. So
yes,
that's awesome. I recommend episode 201. That was a good one. Just saying.
It was a good one. It was a fantastic
you get to talk to DC Cadillac.
That's going to come back to haunt me. I should have kept that story. No, there was a couple, and I've been a fan of Caught on the Mic for a long time. You had a really good conversation with Frank from Electric Callboy.
Yes,
that was fun. In Sum 41. That was a good one.
I got to tell you, School of Rock picked up on that episode.
Oh, did they really?
Neat. Yes. And so School of Rock, I don't know if everybody knows this. Everybody knows of the local School of Rock chapter, but it's a nationwide franchise operation. And they loved that episode because Frank is such an advocate for School of Rock and youth musicians. So I love the fact that you checked out that one. Okay. I'm sorry.
No, that was a great one. Stella Soleil.
Mm-hmm.
I was excited when I saw your social post about that one coming up. I was like, sweet. Because I've been a fan of hers for a really long time too. And I actually just listened to this one this morning. The one you did with Monique from Safe Hairs.
Yes. That one was a little weird. I'm not gonna lie. I could tell, and this is at no detriment to Monique, I could tell that she was kind of new to the podcast format. And that's something that I'm actively trying to get better with, to where you guys and myself, we have these free flow of ideas and topics, and we can kind of bounce point and counterpoint. Sometimes you'll have a guest on that you're like, this is one of their first times doing this.
You don't know how to converse with somebody.
But I'm glad it turned out well. Like, and it was, and I've been a fan of hers forever. So,
that was a good one. I saw them Was it this past summer or the summer? They came through with the Offspring.
Yeah, it was not
That
this summer,
24?
but the summer before. Yeah, summer
Yeah.
24.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were fun. They were fun for
Yeah.
sure.
It's funny you mentioned the Offspring because I just saw that Noodles liked one of my posts just
Nice.
today.
Oh
There's
yeah.
a band that I had on recently called 84 Days. It's Randy Bradbury from Pennywise.
Huh?
It's his side project, and their band is fantastic. They're very like Bad Religion adjacent.
Oh cool.
And then Cameron Webb, who's also a super producer, he's worked with everybody.
Yeah.
It's Cameron and Randy, and then they had Adrian Young from No Doubt play drums on the record, and
Really?
now they've got No Effects' drummer playing with them,
Oh
and
wow.
their album is so good, and that was a fantastic conversation. There was another recent one, it's kind of a similar thing. It was a band called Flight to London, and they kind of have this throwback Tears for Fears sound,
Oh,
and Tears for
what's the name of
Fears,
this band?
Flight to London. I'm
Okay.
serious. You will thank me for this later. Jimmy McGorman, who's the keyboard player for Goo Goo Dolls, and
Yes.
he was one of the founding members of the New Radicals, and
Nice.
it's him and another gentleman, and they both sing, and their voices are just like Tears for Fears, just
Oh,
similar enough that they blend really well, but just different enough that you get those same sort of vibes. And they said that that was very intentional in their sound, was to kind of be like a Tears for Fears and like an 80s throwback. But Flight to London is the band. Check out the album. The interview was fun. It was a blast.
I'm gonna have to check that one out. I haven't heard it
heck
yet.
yeah. You have no idea how big of a Tears for Fears fan I am. That is awesome.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Songs from the Big Chair is like one of my all-time favorite albums. So
Oh man. That's awesome, dude. There's another guest that you had that Dan and I talked about that I thought was very interesting. Dan, you want to drop the
Yeah.
name? Yep.
So, I don't want to necessarily give him any more, attention, but I
It
feel
needs
like
to be talked about.
some of our listeners might appreciate your take on this. So, it was one of your earlier episodes, and you had Finn McKenty on,
yes.
and for a long time, he was a very big proponent of the new metal movement, and his content on YouTube was heavily consumed.
Mhm.
And then he kind of did something that I think probably ruined his career, did in my eyes, and kind of said, nope, did it all for the money, bye, and that was it. And I was like, oh man. So I went and I kind of listened to a lot of that episode, and I was just curious, kind of what your take was on how he, we'll say, exited the industry.
I do have a take on it, and it might shock you. I think the way he exited was a work. I think he wanted out, and
Oh,
and the only way he saw his way out was burning the bridge.
That's fair.
interesting.
I think if you watch his content and you listen to a lot of interviews with him, he is a guy that really respects his own space. He respects his own privacy, and I think he became one of those guys that became so massive at a rate that maybe he psychologically couldn't handle, because
That's fair.
I don't think you have that depth of knowledge and that depth of presentation without having a certain depth of interest in the topic. And like, watch his early episodes of Punk Rock MBA, even to the point,
Right.
there is a point where you can see the switch get flipped and his content started changing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So maybe when his content started changing, he was just doing it to keep views in place. But I don't think he was always doing it for the money as much
Mhm.
as it was like he was starting to feel disingenuous. So
Yeah.
he just needed to burn that road. So he wasn't held accountable for it any longer. So I've had that feeling about him for a long time. I give him grace and love. I mean,
Yeah.
he was such a cool guy. Like, he was so accessible
Yeah.
in an early stage when I was really kind of, I'm not saying that I'm a somebody
Sure.
now, but I was really kind of in my nobody era of Caught on the Mic, and he did that like within my first 30 episodes.
Yeah.
So it's like, and he was very cool. Like we were talking back and forth on Instagram. That's how we got it all set up. And we talked. Anybody that's done my show, and Dan, you can attest to this. Like we have a chat before we press record. We have a chat long after we press record. He was no different. Like there have been every single episode. I will say this in 215 episodes. Every single episode, I wish I would have held the record button on a little bit longer.
Right.
But for reasons like that. But I sincerely have, I believe that was a mental health issue, or a personal issue where he needed to establish a boundary, and the only way he could do it was burn the bridge.
That's really interesting.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yep.
Because from what I had been, reading and, seeing on social media, and it just looked like it got pretty heated, at least in kind of the YouTube metal community, and people were out for blood, just kind of the way that he left it. And then he just kind of disappeared, and it was just kind of hung out there. There was no real, I think he may have commented on some people's videos, really quickly afterwards, but then it was just poof, gone.
Yeah.
Well, and occasionally he'll throw up a post from time to time now.
Will he?
Occasionally he'll have a story pop up. It's nothing pertaining to punk rock MBA, but sometimes it's a quick little blip about something in the music industry or something along those lines.
Interesting.
Yeah, because it's
the last 11 months being mad at him.
Right. Well,
but no, you make a really good point.
Right. I was going to say, it makes a lot of sense what you're saying, Mike, because I just, like, when he burned that bridge, like you're saying, is like, I just sat there thinking, like, there's no way that somebody can put so much effort into something that they don't care about and come across so genuine. And it's like, for example, like, and not to disparage, this genre, because I know a lot of people like it and I'm not knocking it. I'm not a fan of country music, my own opinion.
Yeah.
I could not do anything country music and put all that depth to it and all this background and do all this studying and all this other stuff just for the dollars. There's no way I could do it, because there's a lot of dollars there, I couldn't do it. There's no way. And so I really felt that there was a passion there and stuff. And it makes a lot of sense. He probably just got, who knows what could have happened. Maybe he got too much notability walking out to get groceries or something like that. He's like, I'm just freaking out. I didn't expect it to be like this.
Well, and there, I'm a big nerd about reading body language, nonverbals,
right?
Like what the actions of a person are, the intent behind it. And you kind of look at the time that happened. His wife had just given birth. He had just become a father.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that kind of aligns with where my theory is based out of, where it's just like, I think the guy just wanted a private life again.
Yeah. And that could be, I mean, it's, again, I've never been as famous as he is, or probably a lot of other people for that matter, but we've talked a couple times, Dan and I, about stories about being recognized out and stuff. And one of the stories I told was when my wife had just got done having our first baby, and I was standing outside of the hospital having a cigarette, and this kid was like, hey, you're, and I'm like, oh, we ended up having a chat and stuff, and it was really cool. But the thing is, like, going through that every single day, it's like you're masking essentially, and it's just like, I'm trying to be cool, but yet deep down inside, I'm freaking out that I just had a kid, and I'm like, how am I going to afford all this? My life just changed. What's this mean for my band, and being in that situation day and after day, it's got to be a lot, but
well, and think about where the world has gone post 2020 and post pandemic. The world is pro wrestling. The world is totally pro wrestling.
That's a cool way of putting it.
You don't know where the work ends and the shoot begins, and vice versa. And so I think there's a lot of that in society, and like that's why it's really important for like sincere voices such as yourselves and myself to be there. But do I condone the way that he made his exit? No. But do I think there was more to it than what was probably said? Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, doing YouTube in the way that he was doing it, that's a heavy lift. That's a
Yeah.
real heavy lift. So, I mean, you compile, the celebrity just with the workload. I mean, it's crushing. It's
Yeah.
crushing. So,
Well, I mean, you guys are experiencing that too. So am I.
mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
it's not as simple as when we were band guys. I think we're all very lucky that we had the experience of being band guys to translate to this podcast world
Mm.
because, as much as I hate the idea, I think there's a very, very, very fine line between influencer, content creator, podcaster, to where there are times where it's like, yeah, you got to create the clip. You got to post the clip. You got to post the clip at the right time of day. You're also editing an episode. You're also promoting graphics of an episode. You're also trying to schedule your next episode. And it is an awful lot. It's a lot at our level.
Right.
Could you imagine if we're getting like 10 million views on every
geez.
single video that I mean, it would be awesome. Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
But could you imagine what it would be like if you add that to it?
You're exactly right. And that's the thing. It's just all about that grind, and it's like, so I think back to like, the days of being a musician way back and you'd have these kids come up and like, hey, I just started my band. How do I start? How can I play with you? How can I be like you? How can I whatever and stuff? And it's like, well, tell me what you've been doing. And it's like, well, we play, and it's like, well, are you working this? Are you working that? Are you flyering? Are you like, no, we just think our music's going to do, you see so many people that are just like their girlfriends are driving them around doing this and doing that, paying for things because I'm going to be a rock star someday. And they're not putting any work into anything. It's like, well, you're not going to get anywhere if you have no ambition, and that's what it all comes down to. And no matter what, because basically what it comes down to, the three of us and many more that are in the scene that we know, like Dave Campbell and Billy Peck and all these other people and stuff in this scene and stuff, we're all entrepreneurs, and it's all, we just don't know when to stop, and it's like we need something that perpetual carrot that's hanging out in front of us to chase after. And whether it was 25 years ago trying to get more than 20 people to a show, or it's now we're trying to get more than 10 million people to listen to an episode, it's the same thing, and that drive's always there.
You're right. And it's funny because Dave Campbell, at least once a year, will hit me up and see if I will get one of my bands back together to play a show. and that's exactly it. It's like, you don't understand, man. Once I open that Pandora's box, my personality will not let it just be.
Yeah.
I can't. It's just, I am incapable of just letting something be and letting something be one and done. That's been a careful tightrope walk with this podcast. It's like to not let it consume me the same way being a local musician consumed me. And sometimes it does. Admittedly, sometimes it does, to the point where I'm like, hey, take a break, dude. Like, you don't have to schedule 4 recording sessions in 1 week. You can like, spread it out a little bit, and so
that's how it is actually with my wife. It's the same way. She's basically like, we have a safe word, and when you start getting too upside down with this stuff, I'm saying the safe word, and you got to pull back. You got to dial it back, because I'm just like you, Mike. It's like I get so heavily enthralled into this, and it's like nothing else matters, and it's just the grind is everything that you go for. It's addictive. It's just it's addictive. I love it.
I think that's how we're wired.
It is how we're
think
wired.
we're, coming from that musician base. I think that's just how our brains are developed, where it's like we go warp speed or no speed. And
it's a whole other ball of wax, but we've all had that carrot dangled in front of us too, to some degree, where it's like we've all been close enough to the next level to where we know what could be. So sometimes that's a drug, and like you have to like walk away from it.
For sure.
And too, and I know, Mike, you and I talked about this, I think, briefly before, but it's like, it's that constant need to create things. And it's like, I tell folks all the time, it's like, you can't just consume things. You have to create things too. There has to be a balance there. And, and I truly believe that that's just how you balance yourself as a human. You
Right.
know, if all you do is consume, you're way here. You know what I mean? If all you do is create, then you're way here too. You know, it's like you have to balance the two out.
Yeah.
And I think that it's easy for, at least for me, you know, to go really, you know, hard in the, you know, create category and, you know, not really consume a whole lot. So it's like, okay, maybe, you know, instead of, you know, working on music or whatever, you know, it's like maybe go listen to somebody else's, you know. So I'm, you know, and being conscious of that too, I think is part of the game. So anyway.
Well, I think there's a lot of psychology to that though, too. Just, you know, like, because the thing is, and this is something, you know, I've been in the IT world for over 20 years. I've been a leader for many, many years within that space. And so this is something that I tell people all the time that work for me. You can tell when they're starting to get burnt out, when they're starting to get stressed, you know, and just like as a leader and stuff, like, rather than being like, are you seeing a psychiatrist? Are you seeing a therapist or something like that? Or maybe you should just take some time off or whatever. The first thing I always do is, what are you creating? Like, what are you doing right now to stretch your creative mind? And every single time, nothing. All I do is this. I go home, I watch some TV or something like that. I work out a little bit. It's like, okay, cool. Go home, paint a picture. Go home, draw something. Go home, pick up a guitar, learn an instrument, you know, and every single time, 100% of the time, they start learning how to do something creative, and it changes their life. And they're just like, oh, you know, like
100% does.
Yeah. And like my oldest son, you know, love him to death, you know, but it's like, you can tell when he starts getting stressed out. And the first thing I asked him was like, when was the last time you drew? Because this kid is so talented as an artist. It's unbelievable. And like, oh, it's been a few months. Like with Declan, you got to start drawing again, you know, and then he does, and boom, he's just on fire again, you know. And it's like, we're all built to be creators. And, you know, I think we're all grinders as well in our own ways and stuff, you know. We all have our purpose on this earth and everything. But if you're not creating, man, it's not good for your mind. It's not good for your soul.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Oh, dude, we just talked for like a long time.
Yeah, we did.
It felt like 8 minutes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's how you know it's good.
That's how you know it's good. That's right.
Exactly.
Well, I'll tell you what,
Exactly.
Mike, we got to have you back on, and hopefully we can, you know, come back on your show sometime again.
Absolutely.
And for all of our listeners and stuff, if you haven't heard Caught on the Mic, please do. I promise you will not be disappointed. There's hours and hours and hours of content, tons and tons of great guests that you found on, lots and lots of good insight, lots of backstories that Mike's got of himself going into it. If you're an MMA fan, a boxing fan, any sort of you know, physical, you know, sport fan, you're going to hear it with Mike. Yeah, it's just, I tell you what, the eclectic side of everything of your show is just outstanding, and you just won't get bored. And got to give it to you. So please check him out. Mike, tell us your websites, all that stuff. Where can people find you?
You can find me on all social media platforms at Caught on the Mic, MIKE, not MIC. Caught on the Mic on TikTok, Instagram. That's where I'm the most active. It's where I do the most promoting. Go to my YouTube channel, search out Caught on the Mic on YouTube. That's actually where I'm building right now. The audio versions are still prevailing on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. What's crazy is that the video versions have actually increased more traffic to the audio versions. I have a belief about that, but check them out. And then www.caughtonthemic.com. And you can find out more about me there. And I'm pretty accessible. Like, just shoot me a DM if you have any questions. I'm glad to have a chat anytime.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Well, Mike, it's been a blast, dude. It's honestly been a blast knowing you all these years and everything too. And thank you so much for coming on the show, buddy.
Thanks for having me. This has been fun.
Heck
Totally.
yeah.
We'll have to do it again soon.
Yep. Awesome. All right, brother. Well, until next time, good journey.
See you guys.